All
Whenever
right.
you're ready.
2, 1.
Hello there.
Welcome back to Star Wars in a Galaxy, regular episode number 73. Today, we are going to be doing a retrospective of season 6 of the Clone Wars, the legendary Lost Missions. And I have to say, it feels like we just did our retrospective for season 5, and now we're already done with season 6. But I'm very excited for what the future holds.
Jacob, we recorded our season 5 retrospective at the beginning of January.
Wow. So it really hasn't been that long.
It's
And
been 5 weeks. 6 weeks.
this season is really only 4 arcs.
It's
So
4 arcs. And the
we
next
did what?
one's 4 as well.
Yeah. So we're really
actually
only doing
3. Next one's 3 really. But
Yeah. So we really just recorded 4 episodes for this entire season.
5 including this one, but yes.
5, including this one, yeah, 5, but four regular episodes. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a blast though. Season 6 has been, we'll get into our overall thoughts, but season 6 has been a special one, I gotta say.
Yeah, no, I really appreciated this a lot of this season in new ways with this rewatch. But before we jump in there, I think we need to talk about episode 7, the season finale of Book of Boba Fett. Eli, what did you think of this episode?
That's right. We got In the Name of Honor, the 7th chapter and the final chapter of the Book of Boba Fett. I gotta say, it's interesting. So, watching online, it seems like this episode is maybe one of the most divisive episodes of Star Wars television we've gotten in the last year or so.
100%.
And there were times where I felt like, first of all, I overall enjoyed the episode. I'll just get that out of the way. I overall thought the episode was really good. However, I do think fandom culture a little bit has dulled some of the effects of the Book of Boba Fett for me.
How so?
Well, it's almost like people are getting a little too smart for their own good in sort of the wrong ways. Like, when we saw the Rancor, we're like, oh, he's going to ride it into battle. And it was awesome for me to see, but because everybody had predicted it, I don't know, like, the effects felt a little lacking to me. And I'm not blaming that on the Book of Boba Fett. I don't think that's the Book of Boba Fett's fault. I think that's something that fandom is going to have to reckon with, which is how our theories and how our, all that kind of stuff has an effect on the content we watch.
Yeah, I thought they, for the Rancor, I know what you mean a bit, but I think that they did a good job, at least with the little Rancor side part, of popping it in early, putting it on the back burner a little bit, and then just letting the episodes play out and then bringing it back.
Yeah, no, I think the story decisions
ready.
are great. I have nothing against the story decisions. It was just my personal experience with it.
Okay.
But actually, I want to talk to you about something.
Yeah.
Have you seen the discourse around the spin?
The spin?
Oh, you haven't seen this. This is so funny.
Is this the Boba Fett Cad Bane spin?
No, this is
What spin
there's
are you
one of the
referring to?
mods played by Jordan Bolger. He's trying to get, because Black Chrysanthemum is wounded in the battle.
Yeah.
And he gets him back, and then he does this spin to get back to shooting at the enemies.
This
Is
really
blown up
on
Star Wars
that.
Twitter. It is. People are so mad at this spin. It's so hilarious. I love it so much. People are like, Robert Rodriguez should never direct anything Star Wars again because of how terrible this spin is. To which I replied, Robert Rodriguez should never direct anything Star Wars again, with a gif of the Boba Fett blowing up the ships in Mandalorian Season 2. It's like, it's a spin, guys. Come on.
Yeah. I think there are definitely critiques to be made of Robert Rodriguez's directing, but I think maybe what people are upset about is the spin is kind of emblematic of some of the other quibbles and gripes and issues people take with the RR episodes, specifically in Book of Boba. but I don't know where do you want to start for this episode? I guess
Um,
one thing that I want to get out of the way quick is that obviously, spoiler alert, Baby Yoda comes back. Grogu,
Grogu comes
he
back,
is
yeah.
back. He chooses
The armor.
evidently he chooses the armor. He chooses Din Djarin. Um,
Yeah.
I wasn't super. I didn't have a lot. I didn't feel like I was as super invested in this decision. But it did seem ultimately like the right thing to try and get him out of the picture and make it a little bit easier to explain everything that happens later on down the line. Of course, with Ben Solo, leading up to the events of the Last Jedi. But I heard some people saying, and this was something that kind of intrigued me, that his return devalues Mando and Grogu's goodbye in the season finale of season two of The
Mandalorian.
Mandalorian. What do
Yeah.
you think about that? Do you think that holds water or not?
Ultimately, I don't think so. In my opinion, I don't think it devalues it just because, even if an effect of an action is canceled out, the intent behind it, they didn't know that they were going to see each other ever again. So I feel like, I don't know what it is. I feel like the moment still holds water, and I feel like,
Yeah, for me, I think unless you have more to say,
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I don't think that it devalues the moment because I agree with what you said, and also, you know, yes, it is a bit of a oh, we're doing one thing now, we're doing another, but ultimately, I think it makes more sense for the story, and most of the most of what gives that moment its punch in the first place when Baby Yoda or sorry, when Grogu and Mando are saying goodbye is the emotional impact,
And
not the
Grogu
plot
seeing
implications.
Din's
It's
face.
yeah, it's Grogu seeing Din's face. It's Din as a Mandalorian choosing to remove his helmet for his little green friend.
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, whether or not they get back together later on, to me, I think it's irrelevant.
And
I
and
don't
there's
think
that
it
line,
changes the way that scene hits at all.
and I think one of the things that makes it even more relevant is the when the armorer is talking with a Din in chapter 5 of Book of Boba Fett, and she asks, "Have you ever removed your helmet in the presence of others?" And he very confidently says, "Yes, I have." It's not a
Yeah,
"yes, I have" kind of guilty thing. It's "yes, I have," and I'm damn proud of it.
yeah,
I did it for my son. I did
yeah.
it, and I think that's even if they do get back together with each other, which again, um, they do. I don't think it undervalues the what Din's giving away, what Din
Yeah.
is throwing away.
And we see that a little bit. I think some of what Din says in episode 6, where he's talking about the Mandalorian values versus the Jedi values. Now they feel kind of he feels like they're at odds, where the Mandalorians, family, loyalty, clan is so important to their way of life and it's above everything. That's what makes the moment to me amazing. Not merely the fact that, oh, Grogu and Din aren't going to be hanging out anymore now that he's
Yeah,
going with Luke.
yeah, I agree with that. I also think something that this is an interesting. I've been thinking a lot about this with especially chapters 5 and 6 of the Book of Boba Fett. Around the time the season 2 premiere came out, John Favreau was talking about his process with the Mandalorians, and he's like, I really admired what the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones did, where they all had all of these interlocking storylines, and then they had all these various storylines that weaved in and out of each other. I'm like, oh, we're gonna see that in the next season. And then season 2 came, and as good as it was, and believe me, I love season 2 of The Mandalorian, it didn't really do that. I'm like, what are you talking about, John? And then I see the Book of Boba Fett, and I remember the quote he's talking about how he loves the interweaving storylines, and we take a 2-episode detour to watch The Mandalorian and Grogu and what they're doing, and I'm like, oh, now I get it. I think this was always part of the plan. I think this was always, like... I think there is a decent chance that there's an episode in, like, say, Ahsoka that might have a little bit of Ahsoka in it, but is focused on Boba Fett, or Din, or Cobb Vanth. Why? Because it's all these interlocking, it's all these connecting storylines that's building to this, as Kathleen Kennedy said on the Disney Plus Day, climactic story event.
Yeah.
So I think, like, I understand people's complaints about Boba Fett's lack of, the Book of Boba Fett's lack of focus. And I do respect those, and I have some of those myself. But I also think, like, we have this big picture story that they're telling. And I think there's very much, like, a bigger plan in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. What else about this episode do we need to talk about? Cad Bane.
Yeah, Cad Bane.
I loved seeing Cad Bane back. I think they killed him off prematurely. He was so compelling. He just had so much weight and gravitas and brought so much intensity to every moment that he touched in these last 2 episodes.
See, to me, I actually think they killed him off at exactly the right time.
Yeah, maybe they'll kind of backfill later. If they see how excited people got over live action Cad Bane, hopefully they'll find a way.
Have you heard the debates about whether he died or not?
You think maybe he didn't?
There are people who think he didn't die.
Yeah. I mean, it's Star Wars. No one's ever really gone.
There are people who think there's this blinking red light on him after he dies, that people are like,
oh yeah.
I swear to God, if they bring him back, I'm going to be very irritated.
I mean, he has the robot life support system, so we don't really.
I know, but, like, if they bring back Cad Bane, they're basically admitting that death is not a permanent thing for any of these characters in this series.
Yeah, which I think is kind of a crummy. That would be a crummy decision to make, I think.
Yeah, and I think it devalues very, like look, I bringing back Palpatine had a purpose. Bringing back Maul, as much as I don't like the decision, had a purpose. Bringing back Boba Fett had a purpose. But once you get to, they brought back Fennec Shand, which I understand, and all that kind of stuff, and we're getting there now. They're bringing back Cobb Vanth, and, like, at what point are you willing to let these characters die already?
I just think of Maul saying, "Let me go, let me
die." Which
that's exactly how it feels like these characters. That's exactly what these characters feel like to me. They just, as Star Wars, these last few years, they just, man, Disney, Lucasfilm, they just can't help themselves.
Yeah, Dave specifically is a sucker for doing that. Like,
I know.
He had like 6,000 chances to kill Ahsoka, and he has not acted on that impulse any of those times.
I think maybe that's a good thing, though.
No, I understand. I mean, I think the first few times, I think that was a good idea. But, like, now it's getting a little bit like, okay.
Yeah.
By the way, he literally did kill Ahsoka, and then he literally brought her back to life.
Yeah.
Like, she died on Mortis, and then she was brought back to life. People forget that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
let's stop. Malachor in Rebels. But I have one more thing.
Yeah, that's kind of different.
I was wondering how you felt about the action in these episodes, because, and I don't just want to bash on Robert Rodriguez. I know that his episodes have gotten a lot of blowback, and I share those feelings, but I was just disappointed with the action in this episode. I felt like the scenes, they just felt, I don't know, the camera angles, the lighting, it just didn't feel super Star Wars-y to me. I thought everything just felt really slow and ponderous, and I don't know. All the action just felt really gooey and bogged down. I was definitely not a fan of the action in this episode, and I don't want to be like, oh, I never have him touch Star Wars again. But I think that his from the speeder chase, from everything that we've seen, I just think that he is maybe better suited to much, much less action heavy episodes because I was really hyped for the finale, and the cinematography just felt subpar to me. It just felt bland and uninspired, and I don't know. It got so boring just watching them continuously shoot the force fields. I don't know.
Yeah,
So I don't know how to feel about it.
I had to watch it again another time. It didn't bother me like as acutely, I guess, but I also think there is a part of this um that is the volume. I have to imagine. I'm not saying that we can blame this all on the volume and Rodriguez takes none of the blame. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like they're still working out this new technology and they're still like
Yeah.
figuring out how to best employ it and best use it. And right now it has its limits. Now the limits are, from what I understand, from my very, very, very limited understanding of the volume, rapidly expanding all the time because of how crazy this thing is and how many like boundaries it can push. But they've started to approach the limit of what they can do right now in the volume.
Yeah, I think some of it can maybe be explained by that, but also for me, there was just a lot of stuff that I really just thought it just didn't really feel thought through. Like half of the action was inexplicably in slow motion for no reason that I could see at all. Um, some of the I guess combat logic, you might say, a lot of the choreography, the sniper scene where they're like, I'll distract you, and they're standing like a foot away. Like it just seemed very dull, maybe almost fan made feeling more than a big studio throwing its weight behind this. Not in terms of the overall production quality, obviously. So I don't know. I don't want to be too harsh on Robert Rodriguez, but overall, I just think Book of Boba Fett, I would say it didn't do a great job. It did a really bad job, actually, I think, of capitalizing on his strengths and weaknesses. And yeah, going forward, I think we can all agree on a happier note, though. I think we can all agree that Bryce Dallas Howard definitely needs to do more episodes.
Oh yeah, 100%. I actually think I'm not like I agree that Bryce, and I also agree that Bryce is extremely talented. I think Steph Green, who did the second episode, is extremely talented. I think the person who's shown a lot of promise in live action is Dave. Dave has been
Yeah,
getting better and better in live action, I think,
yeah, I was
all the
I
time.
was really really pleasantly surprised by his by the direction of his episode that he directed, especially compared to what he did in The Mandalorian. I really think he stepped it up, which I
Yeah.
think is a really good sign.
Uh,
And that's definitely a bright spot for the future of
he's
Star
been
Wars.
getting a lot of. I know been taught a lot about live action directing from. And I know you don't want me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. From Mr. Ryan Johnson and
Hmm.
from John Favreau. I think they talked about specifically Ryan
Yeah, yeah,
and John
100%.
with this and with the Mandalorian, teaching him a lot about live action directing. And I think he's really stepped up his game. And there's like a lot of like the way that Cad Bane enters Freetown um in chapter 6 is perfect.
Yeah.
You couldn't have done better.
Yeah. Couldn't have done better.
Yeah, but I was just wanted to mention one more thing I did really love about this episode, 7. Can we talk about the Mayor Domo and his the tablet?
Oh my God. I'm
That was
glad they kept him
hilarious.
around. I really
That
thought
is
that they were gonna, yeah.
that is
I really,
hilarious.
yeah. I really thought that Fennec or someone was just gonna blast him in the first or second episode for a cheap gag, but I'm glad that they kept him around because that was honestly pretty hilarious.
So we're gonna give our before we proceed on to the Clone Wars, we're gonna give our closing thoughts about Book of Boba Fett season 1. I thought the Book of Boba Fett season 1 was very good. I think it definitely had its flaws at times. Uh, I think mainly like some of the action wasn't, and I don't feel like this as strongly as Jacob does, but some of the action wasn't as good as it could have been, and I think the focus sometimes was a bit off, and they couldn't really decide sometimes where they wanted to go with some things. Which, I wasn't feeling comfortable with saying a few weeks ago, but now that I've seen the whole series, I can more confidently say it now. But I think overall, there's some really interesting stuff in here. There's some really great thematic stuff, mostly with Fett and with Din Djarin. And I do like the I do have a bit of a thing for the idea that the whole, oh, it's Book of Boba Fett, and it's intersecting with Mandalorian, it's intersecting with Ahsoka, which is intersecting with, Cobb Vanth, and, all these stories are coming together, and they're connecting with each other, and they're having fluidity with each other. And, we have Grogu just making a decision about if he wants to be a Jedi in the or a Mandalorian in the Book of Boba Fett. Which sounds crazy at first, but when you think about how we're combining all these elements, I really do appreciate that.
Yeah. My overall this season, definitely a mixed bag for me. I thought the highs were tremendously high. I thought Din Djarin's return. I thought Grogu's return. Even I thought aspects of Luke's return, all incredibly well done. Boba Fett's desert adventure. These are things that I really, really liked, and I think were some all-time great Star Wars moments. However, there were also a lot of low moments, and not necessarily low, but very confusing. I just don't vibe with the mods and their role in the story, from a world building perspective, from a plot and just meta quality perspective. But yeah, overall, I think this it was a cool first season. Definitely a lot of strange choices, I thought. But I really think it has a lot of potential. I think that for future seasons, they just need to kind of buckle down, make the show a little bit more tightly constructed, make sure they try and play more to each director's strengths. And then I think we've got something really, really good on our hands.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you about, again, and I also just think, this is encouraging too. For me, the quality jump, and this is something that I heard Alex Damon from Star Wars Explained saying in one of his reviews earlier today, the quality jump from season 1 of The Mandalorian to season 2 of The Mandalorian was humongous, in my opinion. Mandalorian season 1 for me was okay. Mandalorian season 2 was incredible. If they do decide to make a second season of the Book of Boba Fett, which I'm not convinced they will, but if they do, I'm very convinced that they can make the second season so much better than the first one. And I thought the first one was a lot better than the first season of The Mandalorian in general.
Yeah, I think I definitely disagree. I definitely thought that overall season 1 of The Mandalorian was better. But I think that's just because the highs of Book of Boba were higher, but the lows were lower for me.
Okay, that's fair.
But I definitely know what you mean with The Mandalorian. They definitely kicked it up a notch in season 2. They gave it more variety. They gave it more expansiveness. So I definitely am hoping that they can do some of that for Book of Boba. But yeah, I think not my favorite season ever, but honestly, the future still seems bright for this show. Should they choose to continue it long term?
Yeah, absolutely. Should we go on to season 6 of the Clone Wars and talking about?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Let's do this thing. Okay, let's go for overall thoughts of season 6 of the Clone Wars. Why don't you go first?
Season 6 of the Clone Wars. Now, this is an interesting season to me. The Lost Missions. We have the Fives arc.
Missions.
We have Fives. We have Clovis. We have Mace Windu and Jar Jar, and we have the Yoda arcs. So my overall thoughts. First off, tremendous season. Absolutely tremendous. As individual episodes, as arcs. I think it feels incomplete as a season compared to season 4, season 5, heck, even season 3, 2, and 1, I think. Which, I mean, given how it came to be, given that these are, the lost missions, these didn't air. I am still deeply, deeply grateful that we got some more amazing, amazing episodes that they were able to give this to us, because it just adds so much to the Clone Wars. It adds so much to Star Wars in general, to this era, to these characters. So yeah, I really, really was very appreciative of this season this time around.
It's nice to hear your thoughts. What would you rate the season out of 10?
Out of 10, I think this is an interesting one because I think I could give this two different ratings. If I were to just add up my feelings about all the episodes and average them out, I'd probably get a 9 out of 10, maybe an 8.5 out of 10. Like, this was a really, really spectacular collection of episodes. As a season overall, I would give it a 7 out of 10 if we're thinking about them, if we're trying to think about them as kind of a cohesive body of work, as a chapter in the larger season of in the larger story of the Clone Wars, as a chapter in that book. I think a lot of the other seasons do a much better job of, kind of giving their own spin, you know, with season 4 and season 5, especially, some of the ways they weave the stories together throughout the season and give a little more of a feeling of some good closers and openers there. That being said, though, this is not the same as those because it wasn't released the same way. It just didn't have the same process. So I can't really hold that against it.
Okay, yeah, I can hear that. Yeah.
What did you think, though?
Here we go. It's time for me to go. Here we go. So,
Clear the area.
As I've mentioned before, this season is my favorite season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and I will stand by that. I will say this: it's only during this during this rewatch, and this is actually, I'll jump ahead a little bit. The coolest thing I noticed on the rewatch, the genuinely thing I put, is how good it is. Because I think it only became my favorite season on this rewatch. And it one of the things I love about this season, that season 5, while I love it, doesn't truly get to, and season 7, while I love it, doesn't really have enough time to get to, is how it manages to capture the darkness of the times, but the levity of the times, in, like, so succinctly at the same time. We have this dark tone that we get in this period, but Jar Jar goes to rescue a queen from an evil cult for 2 episodes, and we're just fine with that. We just do that because we can. But, like, those episodes still matter. They're not, like, useless. Yeah, I called it's what I love about the Star Wars fan. I called it the absurdist but poignant, the strange but potent, the ridiculous but important.
You hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. It's the stuff I love in Star Wars. It's like, really, we're doing this, and then you look at it and you're like, oh, this actually makes a lot of sense given what we know about the series and what we know about the characters. Of course, no Star Wars is above flaws. My main flaws with this season, the biggest flaw I have with this season, and this is not a huge flaw because of how short the season is. Do you realize this is the only season of Star Wars: The Clone Wars we go without seeing Ahsoka Tano?
Yeah, that is something that I think was missing from this season, but they made it work. I think they made it work still.
They made it work. Like, I didn't notice it too much. However, if we did get an episode or two update on where Ahsoka was and what she was doing, if we gotten, for example, the Walkabout arc in this season instead of next season, I actually think that really could have helped this season. If I had to nitpick at all, I also think a lot of the story choices they made specifically for Padme in the Clovis arc were a little off, honestly. But I'm gonna go ahead and make this a 9.5 out of 10 for season 6.
Wow, high praise indeed.
Yeah.
And I know the way I do my out of 10 rankings, I tend to skew. I think on my rankings, everything tends to skew a little bit lower because the way I see it,
Yeah.
6 is like genuinely positive and 5 is neutral. And I know a lot of people are kind of like 7 and up is good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel the same way as you. Another thing I just realized is this does feel like a little bit of a greatest hits album for the Clone Wars. Think about it. You have your clone focused arc with the Fives arc. You
Boom.
have your Anakin and Padme
Interpersonal
relationship arc. You have
relationship.
the
Yeah.
interpersonal, you have the deep relationship arc. You have the
And you have the
crazy,
politics in that arc too.
yeah, you have the politics in that arc. You have the crazy, wacky, totally out of left field arc with
Absurdist, yeah.
The Jar Jar and Mace Windu arc with Jar Jar's lover. And then you have like the
The
Force mystical
speculative
Jedi arc.
force arc,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think
It
that this is an amazing season because it gives you a little bit of everything. And I know we disagreed when I said that I thought season 4 was better than season 5 in the season 5 retrospective. However, I think in my mind, season 6 is tied with season 4 in my mind for being my favorite season.
I think there are a bunch of episodes in seasons 4 and 5 that we genuinely had a great time on, but I feel like season 6, in terms of this show, has given this show new life
Oh yes.
in a lot of different
100%.
ways. And
100%.
I'm so excited going on from 6 is like I feel like season 6 was a rebirth of In a Galaxy in a lot of different ways, and we have so many cool things going on, including next week. Next week's show is a show I've been looking forward to genuinely for months. I've been looking forward to next week's show. When we'll get to what it is at the end of the episode, it's so ridiculous, but it's gonna be so much fun. And I can't wait for it. But yeah, season 6 is getting into that more like, I'm glad we're picking up the pace. I'm glad we're going a little faster with our pacing.
It's good to get back to weekly. I think that
Yeah.
just helps us. It helps us keep the rhythm going.
And I was
also
just saying,
helps us
like,
get
like
through these freaking episodes.
Yeah, I was gonna
faster.
say like I was gonna say like the like this is a half season compared to the full seasons of 4 and 5, and it's nice to be like, okay, we did 5 episodes and we're done with the season. That's cool.
It's great.
It's great. Yeah. But moving on, let's talk about these rankings because we do our rankings. These are going to be significantly shorter. We're not going to go number 20, number 19. It's going to be 13 episodes ranked.
Yeah.
I'm interested. The interesting thing for mine was my ranking definitely was. It did feel like it was just like, okay, this arc, and then this arc, and then this arc. Like I didn't feel like I mixed a lot.
Yeah, no, I mixed more to try and make sure that each arc overall got its flowers, but I had a hell of a hard time trying to rank these because I think this is the first season for me where there are genuinely there are only net positive episodes.
Yeah.
Every episode I'm a fan of. Nothing I'm even close to ambivalent about. So this made it so hard to rank because in the previous seasons you could be like, oh, well, there's a few I can get out of the way right now. But in this season, every single episode was right there in the mix, which made it incredibly hard.
Yeah. For me, there was one episode that I was like net positive, but I'm kind of like, whatever on. But every other episode I'm like, okay, I like stuff in here. Yeah, I like stuff in here too. Oh, I like stuff in here. And then of course, as you get to my top 5, it's just like, yes, please, yes, please, yes, please, and yes, please.
Yeah.
Give me more. Okay, let's, how are we gonna do that? We're gonna do, Jacob, go ahead, from your, number 13 to your number 1. Go ahead.
Right, as you wish. My number 13 is The Disappeared Part 1. My number 12, An Old Friend. Number 11, The Rise of Clovis. Number 10, The Unknown. Number 9, The Disappeared Part 2. At 8th, I had The Crisis at the Heart. At 7th, I had Conspiracy. At 6th, I had Fugitive. At 5th, I had Voices. At 4th, I had Orders. At third, I had The Lost One. At second, I had Destiny. And in first place, my favorite episode had to be Sacrifice.
Okay,
Now I gotta hear yours.
Here's my ranking. You're gonna be
no
shocked at some things, okay? Number 13, The Rise of Clovis. Number 12, Crisis at the Heart. Number 11, The Unknown. Number 10, Conspiracy. Number 9, An Old Friend. Number 8, Orders. Number 7, Fugitive. Number 6, The Disappeared, Part 1. Number 5, The Lost One. Number 4, The Disappeared, Part 2. Number 3, Voices. Number 2, Destiny. And number 1, Sacrifice.
I think the same top two.
I think that's the second season in a row that we had the same top two.
What were our top two for
Destiny and for season 5 they were The Lawless and The Wrong Jedi.
Oh, of course.
So,
What else could they be? Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, where do we start with this? I want to ask you about The Disappeared, since you rank these much more highly relative to the other episodes.
Yeah, I wasn't actually that shocked with that.
What was so effective about these episodes for you?
They were just kind of like, I mean, the Force episodes were made for me in a way that no other Clone Wars arc I feel like was, but like the Temple of Doom, like the exploring and excavating, like, you know, the whole ancient ruins idea, and, you know, this Frangul cult, and I love this, like, really absurd but really just fun, like, yeah, it's Jar Jar and Mace Windu rescuing a queen from cultists. It doesn't have to go deeper than that. If you don't want it to, it does. But then we have like Mace Windu's incremental character growth, though. Of course, he regresses on by the time of Revenge of the Sith, and we have, you know, like these new aspects of the Force we're exploring, and like, you know, it's one of those things where there are all these different levels to the iceberg that I really appreciate, and you can go exactly as deep as you want to go. Yeah, you know, Mace Windu's really growing cool as a character, but also, look, Jar Jar's operating this laser gun against a cult. Yeah.
It's amazing. I love it. I'm not sure any episodes in my ranking that you're curious about.
Let's talk about Orders. I had that at 8 and you had it at 4.
I mean, I just thought it was a tremendous episode to cap off an amazing arc. So I really liked where they went with Fives in this. I don't know. Not a lot of specific things I can point to. Just overall, I thought it was a really great episode. Why did you put it at 8? What caused you to put it kind of in the middle of the pack?
I think you connected with the top 5's arc a little bit more than I did. And it's not that I didn't connect. It's just like it has sort of with me like what I call the Empire Strikes Back problem, which is why the Empire Strikes Back is in the middle of my ranking of Star Wars movies. It's not that I hate it; it's that I like other things better.
Yeah.
It's not that I hate any of the tough stuff. And personally, for me, Orders is a little bit like, you know, it's one of those things where Orders is one of those episodes. I feel like a little bit like The Lawless, where I know it's technically good, like I know it's crafted in a way that's very genius and very well constructed. It's a hard one to watch, though.
It is a hard one to watch
in a way that Fugitive, the episode before it, isn't.
Yeah,
and that's why I like Fugitive. I like a little bit better.
I think maybe rewatching it this time, I think I was just more able to lean into the tragedy and the difficulty of this episode, and for me, that's part of what made it compelling. So I think that maybe kind of the difference of how we.
Yeah. For me, it was actually kind of the opposite. Like I've watched this a few times, and you know, it's always a very technically good episode, but it's just like, you know, seeing Fives get so close and seeing Palpatine really mess up those things, and seeing the drugging at the beginning of the episode is always a hard thing for me to watch. And seeing him at 79's, the clone bar, and like, there's so many things in the episode. I'm like, you know, I know it's technically good, I just can't watch it. Yeah. Because he gets so close.
Just
Um,
that's part of what I love about this episode is just the fog of desperation and tragedy comes down so heavily on this episode. And to me,
yeah,
that's part of what makes it good. But I think
yeah,
obviously for you, you prefer different episodes.
I do. Let's move on and let's talk about both of our favorite episodes, which do and happen to be the same thing, and that's Sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
Which I remember last time you said Destiny was your favorite of the arc.
Yeah, I think I switched my
You
mind
changed to
a little
Sacrifice,
bit.
and yeah, and
Although I could easily be happy picking either of those as my favorite because they're both so
for
doggone
me,
good.
yeah, for me, Sacrifice is my clear favorite. That does not reduce Destiny's greatness, though. There's so many good things in Destiny. But for me, the thing that really solidly, and I know I've talked at length about this in the last episode, but that talk with Yoda and Mace Windu and Obi-Wan at the end is perfect in every single way. I love what they did with it. There's always a debriefing, like at the end of each episode, like, oh, what did we learn from this episode and all that kind of stuff. And it usually doesn't have that much substance to it, but this one said everything that it needed to. Not only a debrief for the episode, not only a debrief for the season, but a debrief essentially for the 6 seasons before then. What did we learn? Not certain one can ever win a war, I am. Through the bloodshed, already lost so much we have. Um,
I mean, right there, that's just beautiful.
it's a completion of the arc that began in season 1 when Yoda said at the end of, and I bring this up constantly, Lair of Grievous, when he said, in this war, a danger there is of losing who we are. This is a completion of that, Yoda realizing, yeah, I was wrong there. There's not a danger of that, because it's already happened. Because that's already, because the thing I was warning against was happening, and I didn't even notice it. Psyche and, when Rey is talking to Leia in The Last Jedi about Luke's death, she says it had a sense of peace and purpose, which is always something that resonated with me because that's how I felt like my favorite Star Wars things happen, even if they have tragedy in them. They always have a sense of peace and purpose. Like, you understand why they're there. Even if they are tragic, you understand why they're there. And that's something that happens for me a lot with Sacrifice, and a lot with Victory and Death, and a lot with the ending shots of Revenge of the Sith, and a lot with, the ending of Last Jedi, or the ending of, all that kind of stuff. You get it. You kind of like, it makes sense. It clicks.
Yeah, I really liked Sacrifice as well. Incredible episode. I think just thinking about it now, I think I just appreciated it just the tiniest bit more than I did Destiny, even though they are both world class episodes. I really think just his to me the poignancy of his decision with Anakin and Sidious, it just pushed it over the edge to me. There was so much in that moment. It was amazing.
Let's talk about your least favorite episode first. Let's talk about the Disappeared Part 1.
Like you said, bit of an Empire Strikes Back problem. Or for me, it wouldn't be the Empire Strikes
Yeah.
Back because it's my favorite. But
Yeah.
similar sentiment, similar feeling for me here, where it was good. Just all the episodes, I just enjoyed them more. It was a cool episode. I
But you
liked
just
seeing Jar Jar get some redemption. Um, I liked seeing Mace Windu start to come around a little bit. But these were all elements that I just think were more emphasized in season or in part 2.
Yeah. I agree. I like the second part better. I still think the first part was very good though. Anything else, or do you want me to talk about Rise of Clovis?
Yeah, I want to hear. I want to hear why Rise of Clovis was your number 13.
There were just some things, and this is the only episode where I'm like, yeah, it's like it leans positive, but there are things that I'm like, really, did that have to happen? There's a bunch of things, and to give it a credit, this is the episode where Padme decides to split up with Anakin, which I believe is one of the best moves in the entire arc. But I just feel like there are some things like, that entire fight between Anakin and Clovis, where they're like fist fighting, and and Padme's like, no, no, stop, and Anakin's like, you don't get a say in this. I'm like, that wasn't like, I understand the ideas behind it, but the execution for me was simply just not there.
Yeah,
And
that's fair.
there were a lot of things. There were a few things in that episode where it was just like, I understand what you're going for, but how you say it is a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also, and I also said there's only so much pseudo banking I can take, in a Clone Wars arc.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I enjoyed that aspect
Yeah.
more than you did.
No, I get that. Should we go on to best character or characters?
Best characters. You want to take this one first? Should I?
I'll take it first this time.
All right.
I felt an obligation, and I don't think this will surprise anybody, but I felt an obligation to give this to Yoda in this season. Just based on that last arc, based on all the transformation he goes to, based on the fact that I have 2 pop figures of him back here, based on the fact that he's my favorite character and he gets one of the most genius arcs of the entire Clone Wars series, I gotta give it to my boy, the Grandmaster.
Yeah. As I like to do, I like to give out several nods to characters that I think are not necessarily central characters in the Clone Wars, but that kind of have their moments in the season. So first off, Fives. Obviously, this is his swan song. It is amazing. Fives, more than any other clone, I think, as a character, just poses so many questions and gets us as viewers thinking so much about what does it mean to be a clone, the morality of the Grand Army of the Republic, things like that, which is something I really appreciate. And over the years, he's just built up, to me, he's just built up as one of the most likable, most endearing clones, one of the most endearing characters in the Clone Wars period. And I think that he just had, while it was completely tragic, he did have kind of a perfect send-off, I think.
Yeah.
However tragic it ended up being. Secondly, Yoda, like you, want to give the nod to Yoda. It's not like we haven't seen any of Yoda before in the Clone Wars, but he is a little more of a peripheral character overall, I think. It's that we get to see the different side of him. We get to see him enjoying life a little bit. And most importantly, I think we get to see his views, his beliefs evolve. And we get to see a little bit of that bridge of where is he at in the Clone Wars versus where is he at in The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Thirdly,
I was going to say, just quickly, sorry, I do feel like Voices is a spiritual successor to Ambush in a lot of ways.
Yes, 100%. 100%. Yeah. Lastly, Mace Windu. I really like that we saw a little bit of the good side of Mace Windu. I think he gets a lot of hate as a character. I don't think it's all deserved. So it was nice just to get to see him in a better light for once, as a Mace Windu fan myself.
Yeah, I understand that. Who is your least? I had a lot of trouble with my least favorite. There wasn't anybody who particularly annoyed me that much. My 2 options that I was like really shifting between were Rush Clovis and Nala Se. I think I might, because here's the thing, they're both pretty much assholes during the season. Clovis dies doing what he thinks is right, which makes me want to go with Se, but then I look at Se's actions to help Omega in the last episodes of the first season of The Bad Batch, and it makes me not so sure, but I'm going to give it to Nala Se because she's just so incredibly... She knows exactly what she's doing, and she knows exactly who she's betraying, and she just goes along with it anyway, and she's like just a perfect symbol of corruption and, bureaucracies and all that kind of stuff. I'm giving it to Nala Se.
Yeah.
narrowly.
I think I got to give it to, first off, I feel legally compelled to give it to Commander Fox for obvious reasons.
He slipped into my
Namely,
mind, but
he
then
guns down
again,
fives. He
yeah,
guns down fives. That's
just
just
the.
awful.
I know, but the scene where they're standing in a circle with their helmets off around fives, that was the thing that made me not want to give it to him.
Yeah. Secondly, that is maybe a little bit of an honorable mention. Because secondly, Shock T. I think Shock T's ignorance, willful ignorance in this arc is just okay. Eli's walked away. Eli has stood up and walked away. Come back, man.
You know, I had
just
AirPods in, so I
really,
can still hear you.
I just really, really did not like the way that she handled business, and it very obviously was done with intent. It's not like it was bad, but it was just very, very difficult to watch.
Okay. I put more of the blame on Nala Se in that scenario, but I can see where you're coming from. Coolest new thing you noticed from the rewatch? Go ahead.
This was an interesting one for me. I think one thing I noticed, I paid a lot more attention to the Pikes this time. Now that they're in live action, now that they've kind of gotten some more say in Solo, obviously in Book of Boba, I really appreciated their presence a little bit more this time. Secondly, on Yoda's journey, I know this is kind of in backwards order because I wasn't as familiar with these episodes when I was watching, for all the times that I've watched Rebels, for all the times that I've watched the originals. But there were so many beautiful, beautiful parallels between Yoda's journey in this season and Luke's journey, and especially between Yoda and Ezra, that I just absolutely loved.
Yeah. No, there's some really great things that you notice on a rewatch. Frankly, mine was, I described it earlier, just how good it is. This rewatch made season 6 my favorite season of the Clone Wars. I never hated it. I always loved it, but I usually talk about season 7 or season 4 being the best, but no, it's season 6, in my opinion. Favorite planet?
You want to take this one first?
Sure. I think probably maybe a shocking pick for some, but maybe not. Bardata. Everything we see of that planet, Moraband was cool. Not gonna lie, that was my second place. But Moraband is one of those things where, we have Moraband or Korriban in so much other Star Wars content, and I'm glad it got its due here. Do you know how many other pieces of Star Wars content Bardata's appeared in? 0. This is the only appearance of Bardata, and I think it gives a really interesting impression. And I'm kind of lumping the moon that we see at the end in with Bardata a little bit, because of its interesting marketplace and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, absolutely, the two celestial bodies we see in the Disappeared arc.
Okay, good choices. My picks, I think I had a tie between Obadiah and Korriban. I loved seeing Obadiah. I loved all the action that we got on Obadiah. That duel was just mind-blowing, easily the best duel in the Clone Wars, in my opinion. And then obviously everything that happens on Korriban as well is just top-notch. You know what? Oh, shoot, I'm blanking on the name. What's the first planet that Yoda goes to
The Origin
in
of
his
Life?
quest? The Origin of Life.
Or
Is
are
there
you
a name
talking
for
about
that planet?
Dagobah?
Not Dagobah, the Origin of Life.
I'm not sure. I don't think there is a name. I don't think I think unlike Mortis, let's see. I'm gonna look it up.
It's okay. Throw in the Origin of Life there too, because I can't remember if it has another name.
He goes to that in Destiny, the episode. Let me see. I want to look it up just because I actually want to know. It's the planet in search of a. Let's see, by type, by locations. It's called the Wellspring of Life.
Yeah. Okay, well, the wellspring of life. Hmm. Yeah, that's gonna be in there too. Just such a beautifully constructed planet, visually absolutely stunning.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Now it's time to get to everyone's favorite part of Star Wars in the galaxy. What you've brought me today is worth 1/4 portion. So Jacob and I have two different 1/4 portion segments to do. Jacob did a Star Wars opinion question. I'm going to introduce a possible new Star Wars 1/4 portion segment that I want to see if we like and we can do if we want to do. So go ahead with your first Star Wars opinion question.
Okay. Eli, who do you think has the coolest armor in all of Star Wars?
Um, I'll tell you someone it's not. It's not Ochi of Bestoon. That guy's armor covers up too much of his beautiful face. um, no, I actually really don't like that armor. Mostly because I got used to the original Ochi design. But anyway, it's hard. My immediate thoughts, go to you think of the iconic armor in Star Wars. I mean, this is probably recency bias, but I gotta say it. Boba Fett, man.
Hard to beat.
It's hard. It's hard to beat the icon status of his armor, and the various nicks and dents and sort of things on that. Yeah, it's Boba Fett. What about you?
I am going to have to go with the one, the only Sabine Wren's armor. I think it's just the coolest. And we get like 4 different versions of it in Rebels as well.
Yeah,
What's not to love?
That's great. Okay, so here's my new thing. So Jacob, I was thinking the other day, I'm thinking about maybe my favorite segment of 1/4 portion, which is 6 Degrees of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I love this, but no offense to the Book of Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett ruined 6 Degrees of Star Wars.
It is running 6 degrees of Star Wars.
Because Cad Bane interacts with Boba Fett, who interacts with Mando, who interacts with Luke and Grogu, and it's getting a little too much. So I had an idea for an alteration of this game, which I call In a Roundabout Way. Okay?
Okay.
For example, here's an example of this, okay? And of course, this requires a lot of jumping to conclusions and stuff like that, but it still is fun. So I would say to you, Darth Vader is responsible for Cad Bane's death. How is that so?
Darth Vader is responsible for Cad Bane's death. Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, Darth Vader, he's kind of affected a lot of things. Darth Vader is responsible for Cad Bane's death because had Anakin... Can it be, or specifically Darth Vader?
I'm specifically thinking of Darth Vader. I mean, you could do this any number of ways, but
okay.
there's a specific way I'm thinking of.
Gosh, what am I missing here?
This is all stuff that happens in. I can tell you the content if that'll help you. The content of this is Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and the Book of Boba Fett. That's it.
Had Darth Vader not put a bounty on Han Solo, Boba Fett probably would not have eventually fallen into the Sarlacc pit because he may not have been with Jabba at that time. He may not have stayed on Tatooine if he wasn't stranded there, and he may not have ever seen Cad Bane again. What were you
Very
thinking of?
close. Very close. I was extrapolating that it was not the bounty on Han Solo, but it was the carbonite freezing of Han Solo that allowed him to be blind and smack Boba Fett with the stick
Mm.
unintentionally on Tatooine, which then, here's the part that I was thinking of, allowed him to to get his gaffy stick made by the Tuskens who rescued him, which then allowed him to defeat Cad Bane.
Oh, of
And then
course.
here's the conclusion of the game. So in a roundabout way, you could say Darth Vader caused Cad Bane's death. That's why it's called in a roundabout way. I don't know. This was just something I was throwing around. What do you think?
I don't know. We can talk about it. We can try and tweak it, but I think six
Yeah.
degrees still might be a better option.
Yeah, I was just thinking of something like that. Or here's another weird one, okay? In a roundabout way, the Bad Batch is responsible for the liberation of Lothal.
I've got nothing for this one.
Okay, this one's a really technical one, and I know this could have happened without him and all that kind of stuff. Here we go. The Bad Batch rescued Gregor from Darrow at the end of season 1. And so Gregor could be there for the liberation of Lothal
Mm.
to meet Ezra and all that kind of stuff to liberate Lothal in season 4 of Star Wars Rebels.
All right, fair.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I just thought that 6 degrees, and I love 6 degrees, you know, but it was getting a little bit too easy. But I don't. It was just an idea I was throwing around. We don't have to continue it. But anyway, that's gonna be it for this episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Let's talk about next week. I scoured the dark corners of the internet. No, I didn't. But we'll pretend I did. To find the unfinished Clone Wars episodes, A Death on Utapau, In Search of the Crystal, Crystal Crisis, and The Big Bang, which were unfinished episodes, not fully rendered, but with voice acting and animation and everything, of Season 7 of Star Wars The Clone Wars. These are unfinished episodes. I sent them to Jacob. We have the files. We're going to watch them. We're going to talk about it. It's a 4-episode arc. These episodes never made it to air. I know generally what kind of happens, but I don't really know specifics. Jacob, do you know anything? Or
I have absolutely nothing.
so
I'm
we're
going
going
into this
into this.
blind.
So we're going into this basically blind. Which is the first time we've done this since Star Wars Clone Wars, or maybe even Bounty Hunter. So Jacob and I are going into this blind. When we talk, this is the fun part of this show. I'm so excited about. And Jacob, tell me if you agree with me or not or whatever. When we said watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on, we meant it. We meant literally all. We're going to try and I want to do the Droids animated series. I want to do the holiday special. I want to do any piece of Star Wars content that was shot. I want to do it.
All right.
Yeah. And so we're gonna be watching those and talking about that next week. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter at In a Galaxy Pod, Instagram at Star Wars in a Galaxy. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to your podcasts, we will be there. If we're not, you can email us at swinagalaxy@gmail.com. Follow me, my personal account on Twitter at OchiFan327. And until next time, may the Force be with you. Always.